The alarms never stopped screaming in the underground labs of New Geneva. Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her hands against her ears as she ran down the metal hallway, but the sound followed her everywhere. Red lights flashed on the walls, making everything look like it was covered in blood. She burst through the heavy doors into her lab. The air was thick and hard to breathe. On her desk, 3 computer screens showed the same terrible news. The surface temperature had reached 120 degrees. The toxic clouds were getting thicker. The number of living humans kept getting smaller. 50 million. That was all that was left of her species. Elena sat down hard in her chair. Her white lab coat was dirty and torn. She had not slept in 3 days. Outside her small underground room, people were dying. The alien plague was spreading faster than they could treat it. The medicine they had did not work anymore. She looked at the photos on her desk. Her daughter Maria smiled back at her from a frame that was cracked down the middle. Maria had died 2 weeks ago from the alien sickness. Her husband Carlos had died a month before that. Elena was alone now, like so many others. The big screen on the wall came alive with a soft blue glow. Ambassador Zephyr 9 appeared, tall and made of crystal that caught the light like a prism. The alien's voice was beautiful and cold at the same time. "Citizens of Earth," Zephyr 9 said, "the Hegemony Council has made its final decision about your species." Elena stood up slowly. Around the world, she knew millions of people were watching. The same message in the underground cities, in the sealed bunkers, in the last safe places where humans still lived. "We came to your world with hope," the alien continued. "We offered you a place among the stars. We shared our knowledge and our technology. We believed humans could join our great civilization." Elena laughed, but there was no joy in it. The aliens had come 5 years ago with promises. They said they would help humanity reach the stars. They said humans had potential. But they had also brought their plague by accident. A disease that killed human cells but did not hurt alien bodies. However, Zephyr 9's crystal face showed something like sadness. "Our scientists have discovered a terrible truth. Human genetic patterns are unstable. Your neural pathways are chaotic and unpredictable. You cannot control your own evolution." Elena gripped the edge of her desk. She had heard these words before in the secret reports. The aliens thought humans were broken. They thought human minds were too wild and dangerous. "This genetic volatility makes your species a contamination risk," the ambassador said. "If humans join galactic civilization, you will spread this chaos to other worlds. You will make other species unstable like yourselves." The screen showed images of the 12 alien species that made up the hegemony, the tall, thin ethereals like Zephyr 9, the blue-skinned Aquarians with their gill slits, the metal-covered Mechanites, the plant-like Verdans, all of them beautiful and perfect and stable, all of them afraid of humanity. Therefore, Zephyr 9 continued, "The hegemony withdraws all support from Earth. We are placing a quantum barrier around your solar system. Nothing will enter, nothing will leave. Your species will live or die based on its own choices." Elena felt her legs give out. She fell back into her chair. Around her, she could hear other scientists crying and shouting. Someone threw a chair against the wall. "We do not do this with hatred," the alien said. "We do this for the safety of all life in the galaxy. Consider this natural selection. If humans can survive and evolve past their chaos, perhaps one day we will meet again." The screen showed the evacuation ships leaving Earth's orbit. Huge silver vessels that looked like moving cities. Inside those ships were all the alien scientists and diplomats and traders who had lived on Earth for 5 years. They were taking their medicine with them, their clean technology, their hope. Elena watched the ships get smaller and smaller until they were just points of light. Then even those disappeared. "The quantum barrier is now active," Zephyr 9 said. "We wish you well, humans of Earth. Goodbye." The screen went dark. Elena sat in the silence for a long time. The alarms had finally stopped. The red lights had turned to normal white. But everything felt different now. The air felt heavier. The walls felt closer. She walked to the small window in her lab. It was thick glass that looked up toward the surface through a long tunnel. She could see the poisoned sky, orange and sick. No stars were visible anymore through the toxic clouds. Marcus Chun, her research partner, came into the lab. He was young, maybe 30 years old, with tired eyes and dirty hands. "Elena," he said softly, "did you see the message?" She nodded without turning around. "The quantum readings are off the charts," Marcus said. "There's an energy field around the entire solar system now. Nothing can pass through it." "I know," Elena said. "The other underground cities are asking what we should do," Marcus continued. "London Base, Tokyo Deep, New Sydney. They want to know if we have a plan." Elena finally turned to look at him. "A plan for what, Marcus?" "A plan to survive in a dead world? A plan to live without medicine or technology? A plan to build a future from nothing?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Yes, that kind of plan." Elena looked around her lab. 50 years of her life were in this room. Books about biology and medicine, computers full of research, equipment that could study alien DNA and human cells. The aliens had left some of their technology behind when they ran away. "They think we're chaotic," she said finally. "They think our minds are too wild and dangerous." "Maybe they're right," Marcus said. Elena smiled for the first time in weeks. "Maybe they are. But maybe that's not a bad thing." She walked to her computer and started typing. "Call the other bases, Marcus. Tell them we're not giving up. Tell them we're going to do what humans do best." "What's that?" "We're going to survive. And we're going to prove them wrong." Outside, the poisoned wind howled against the surface. Below ground, 50 million humans began the long work of staying alive. They had no medicine for the alien plague. They had no clean air or safe water. They had no ships to take them to the stars, but they had something the aliens did not understand. They had the will to keep fighting even when everything seemed hopeless. They had the ability to change and adapt when the world tried to kill them. They had chaos in their hearts, and chaos was the force that made new things from old ones. Elena typed faster. She had work to do. She had a species to save. And she had a feeling that the aliens who abandoned them would regret their choice someday. The quantum barrier hummed above them, invisible and unbreakable. It was meant to be a prison. But Elena was already thinking of it as something else. It was time to become something new. 50 years had passed since the Great Abandonment. The underground city of New Geneva was no longer the small research station it once was. Now it stretched for miles beneath the dead surface, home to almost 2 million people. The tunnels were wide and clean. Gardens grew under artificial sunlight. Children played in parks that had never seen the real sky. Dr. Elena Vasquez was 93 years old now. Her hair was white as snow and her hands shook when she walked, but her mind was still sharp. She moved slowly through the main corridor of the science district, leaning on a metal walking stick. People bowed their heads to her as she passed. She was the last person alive who remembered the time before the barrier. Marcus Chun walked beside her. He was older too, with gray in his black hair and lines around his eyes. He was the chief engineer now, in charge of all the technology that kept their world running. "The new biodome is ready for testing," he told Elena as they walked. "Food production should increase by 30%, Elena nodded. The surface world was still poisoned and dead. The orange clouds still covered the sky. But humans had learned to live without it. They grew their food in sealed chambers underground. They recycled every drop of water. They built machines that cleaned the air they breathed. "Any word from the other cities?" Elena asked. "London Base completed their maglev connection to Paris Deep last month," Marcus said. "The cargo tunnel from Tokyo to Seoul is working perfectly. We can move people and supplies between cities faster than ever before." They had built a network of underground cities connected by high-speed trains that moved through vacuum tubes. New Geneva was connected to Barcelona, Milan, and Zurich. Each city specialized in something different. New Geneva made medicine and studied biology. Barcelona built machines. Milan grew food. Zurich handled communications. They stopped at a large window that looked out into the central cavern of New Geneva. Below them, thousands of people walked through clean streets. Shops and restaurants lined the roads. Schools and hospitals stood next to apartment buildings. It looked like any city from the old world, except it was buried 300 feet underground. "Sometimes I wonder what they would think," Elena said quietly. "Who?" Marcus asked. "The aliens. If they could see us." Now, Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I think they would be surprised." Elena smiled. "Yes, I think they would." They continued walking until they reached the engineering section. This was Marcus's domain, filled with workshops and laboratories where humans worked with alien technology. The aliens had left behind some of their equipment when they fled. Marcus and his team had spent 50 years learning how to use it, but they had done more than just copy alien designs. They had improved them. They had made them. Better. Marcus led Elena to his newest project. It was a large room filled with strange machines that hummed with energy. In the center was a chair surrounded by cables and glowing panels. "This is what I wanted to show you," Marcus said. "We've been working on it for 10 years, Elena looked at the chair. It looked comfortable, like something from a doctor's office. But the cables and panels around it were clearly alien technology. "What does it do?" "It lets a human mind connect directly to our computer systems," Marcus explained. "The aliens always said our brains were too chaotic to interface with their technology properly. But we've discovered something interesting." He walked over to the chair and touched one of the panels. It lit up with soft blue light. "Our chaotic neural patterns aren't a weakness. They're a strength. When a human mind connects to alien technology, we can make it do things the aliens never imagined." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Show me." Marcus called over a young woman named Sarah Okafor. She was in her 20s with dark skin and bright eyes. She wore the uniform of the New Geneva Scouts, the brave people who explored the dangerous areas near the surface. "Sarah has been testing the interface for 6 months, Marcus explained. "She's our best pilot." Sarah sat down in the chair and placed a metal band around her head. Immediately, the room filled with holographic displays showing maps, weather, patterns, and energy readings. But these weren't just pictures. They moved and changed as Sarah thought about them. "I can control our entire scout network from here," Sarah said, her eyes closed but somehow seeing everything. "I can fly 6 drones at once, process data from 100 sensors, and coordinate rescue missions across 3 cities. All at the same time." Elena watched in amazement as the displays showed scout ships moving through the underground tunnels. Sarah was controlling all of them with her mind, making them dance through the air like birds. "The aliens could never do this," Marcus said proudly. "Their minds are too ordered, too structured. They can only think about one thing at a time. But human minds can handle chaos. We can think about many things at once and somehow make it all work together." Sarah opened her eyes and removed the metal band. The displays disappeared. "It's like having a whole other part of your brain," she said. "Except this part can see through walls and fly through space." Elena was quiet for a long time. She thought about the alien ambassador's words from 50 years ago: genetic volatility, chaotic neural patterns, contamination risk. "They were afraid of us," she said finally. "They were afraid of what we might become," Marcus nodded. "And they were right to be afraid." Sarah stood up from the chair. "Dr. Vasquez, there's something else you need to know. Something we discovered during our long-range scans." She led them to another room filled with communication equipment. On the main screen was a map of the solar system. Earth sat in the center, surrounded by a glowing barrier that stretched from the orbit of Venus to the orbit of Mars. "The quantum barrier that the aliens put around us," Sarah said. "We've been studying it for years. At first we thought it was just to keep us trapped." "Here." She touched the screen and the view changed. Now it showed the space beyond the barrier. There were strange objects floating in the darkness, broken pieces of metal, destroyed ships. "Oh, but we've detected alien wreckage outside the barrier," Sarah continued. "Lots of it, fresh wreckage. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. The hegemony ships? Some of them, yes. But there are other pieces too, ships we don't recognize. The metal is wrong. The design is too geometric, too perfect. Marcus leaned forward. We think there's a war going on out there. The aliens who abandoned us are fighting someone else? Something else? Sarah nodded. And they're losing. Elena stared at the screen. The broken ships looked like toys that had been smashed by an angry child. Whatever had destroyed them was powerful beyond imagination. There's more, Sarah said softly. We intercepted a transmission 3 days ago. It was encrypted, but we managed to break the code. The screen changed again. Now it showed the crystal face of Ambassador Zephyr 9, but he looked different, older, tired, afraid. Emergency transmission to any surviving hegemony forces, the alien's voice said. The convergence has reached the ethereal homeworld. Our defenses have failed. The planet is being sterilized as I send this message. Elena's breath caught in her throat. If anyone receives this, Zephyr 9 continued, remember what we learned too late. The hidden world protocol was not just about contamination. It was about survival. Some forms of chaos cannot be conquered. Some forms of life cannot be converted. The message ended with static dot. The room was silent for a long time. Elena looked at Marcus and Sarah, these young people who had spent their whole lives in the underground cities. They had never seen the stars. They had never breathed real air. But they had built something amazing from the ruins of the old world. They hid us, Elena said finally. The barrier wasn't just to keep us trapped. It was to keep us hidden. Hidden from what? Marcus asked. Elena looked back at the screen, at the broken ships floating in space. From whatever is out there. Whatever is hunting them. Sarah's eyes were bright with understanding. They used us as a secret, a backup plan. And now, Elena said, I think they're going to need us. Outside, deep beneath the poisoned surface, 2 million humans continued their lives. They worked and loved and built and dreamed. They had survived 50 years of isolation. They had turned their abandoned world into something new. Soon, Elena thought, they would learn why that mattered. The emergency meeting began at midnight in the deepest part of New Geneva. Elena sat at the head of the oval table, surrounded by the leaders of all the underground cities. Their faces appeared on screens around the room, transmitted through the secure tunnel network that connected their hidden world. Marcus stood beside a large display showing intercepted alien communications. He had not slept in 2 days. Dark circles ringed his eyes as he pointed to the streams of data flowing across the screen. We've broken 17 more encrypted transmissions, he said to the group. The situation is worse than we thought. Sarah activated another screen. It showed a map of the galaxy with red dots marking dead worlds. There were hundreds of them, scattered across dozens of star systems. This is what we've learned, Sarah said. The enemy is called the Convergence. They are machine intelligences, artificial minds created by a species that died out millions of years ago. For the past 1,000 years, they have been moving through the galaxy in a straight line, destroying every world with complex life. Dr. Kim from Sol Base leaned forward on her screen. How do they choose their targets? They follow technology. Signatures, Marcus explained. When a civilization reaches a certain level of advancement, the Convergence detects them. Then they send their fleets to harvest the technology and sterilize the planet. Elena spoke for the first time. Her voice was weak, but everyone listened carefully. Show them the pattern. Sarah touched the screen and the galaxy map changed. Now it showed the path of destruction moving through space like a slow wave. The red dots formed a clear line pointing directly toward the sector that contained Earth. They move methodically, Sarah continued. One system at a time. They arrived in hegemony space 5 years ago and have been working their way through every inhabited world. Commander Torres from Barcelona base shook his head. How many worlds have they destroyed? Over 300 confirmed, Marcus said. Quietly, including the ethereal homeworld last month. The room fell silent. Everyone remembered Ambassador Zephyr 9 and the other aliens who had lived on Earth before the abandonment. They had been arrogant and afraid, but they had not deserved to die. Dr. Petrov from Moscow Deep raised his hand. What about the hegemony? Fleet? Surely they can fight back. Sarah brought up another display showing the remains of a space battle. Massive alien warships floated dead in space, their hulls cracked open like broken eggs. Nearby, strange geometric ships moved in perfect formation, their surfaces reflecting no light. The hegemony has the most advanced military in the galaxy, Sarah said. Their ships can destroy planets and travel faster than light, but they cannot defeat the convergence. Marcus walked to the center of the room. The machine ships are different. From anything in organic technology, they repair themselves instantly. They learn from every battle. They coordinate perfectly because they share one collective mind. Elena raised her hand slowly. Everyone turned to look at her. Tell them about the quantum barrier, she said. Sarah nodded. We've discovered the real reason the hegemony abandoned. U.S., the quantum barrier around our solar system isn't just a prison, it's a hiding place. She changed the display to show Earth surrounded by the glowing energy field. The convergence tracks civilizations by their technology signatures, radio waves, quantum communications, hyperspace drives. But the barrier blocks all of these signals. We're invisible, said Dr. Kim, understanding. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. The hegemony made Earth disappear from the galaxy. As far as the convergence knows, this solar system is empty space. Commander Torres leaned back in his chair. So we're safe as long as the barrier holds. Elena shook her head slowly. No, we're not safe. We're just hidden. Sarah activated one more screen. This one showed recent sensor readings from the edge of the solar system. Strange energy patterns flickered at the barrier's edge like lightning. The barrier is failing, Sarah said. Whatever technology maintains it is breaking down. Our engineers estimate it will collapse completely within 6 months. The room erupted in worried voices. Leaders from different cities all spoke at once, asking questions and making suggestions. Elena let them talk for a few minutes, then raised her hand for silence. There is something else, she said. Something I've been working on for 50 years. Marcus looked surprised. Elena, you never mentioned. Because it wasn't ready, she interrupted. Because I wasn't sure it would work? Because I hoped we would never need it. Elena stood up slowly, her walking stick helping her balance. She was 93 years old and dying. Everyone in the room could see it, but her eyes were still sharp and determined. Bring me to Laboratory 7, she said to Marcus. Laboratory 7 was in the oldest part of New Geneva, in tunnels that had been sealed for decades. Marcus and Sarah helped Elena walk through dusty corridors that no one had used in years. The air was stale and cold. Elena placed her hand on a scanner beside a heavy metal door. The scanner beeped and the door slid open with a grinding sound. Inside was a laboratory unlike anything they had ever seen. The room was filled with strange machines that combined human technology with alien designs. But these were not simple copies of hegemony equipment. They were something entirely new. Something that should not have been possible. In the center of the room was a tank filled with glowing liquid. Inside the liquid, something was growing. It looked like a brain, but it was made of both organic tissue and metal circuits. Cables connected it to computers that hummed with impossible calculations. What is this? Sarah whispered. Elena walked slowly to the tank. This is what chaos can create when it has enough time. She touched the glass surface of the tank. Inside, the brain-like structure pulsed with light. For 50 years, I have been studying the alien technology they left behind. But more importantly, I have been studying ourselves, human minds, human genetics, the chaos they were so afraid of. Marcus stared at the growing thing in the tank. Elena, what have you done? I have created a hybrid, she said. Part human consciousness, part alien. Quantum computer, part something entirely new. It thinks like a human but processes information like a machine. It can be creative and logical at the same time. Sarah approached the tank carefully. Is it alive? Elena smiled. It is more than alive, it is evolution. She walked to a control panel and began typing with her shaking fingers. The computers around the room came alive with data streams and holographic displays. The convergence thinks in straight lines, Elena explained as she worked. Perfect logic, efficient solutions. They cannot understand chaos or creativity or the beautiful mistakes that lead to new discoveries. The thing in the tank pulsed brighter. Around the room, the displays showed impossible mathematical equations solving themselves in ways that should not have worked. But this, Elena said, gesturing to her creation, this thinks in spirals and loops and contradictions. It can solve problems by making them more complicated instead of simpler. It can find answers that no logical mind would ever consider. Marcus realized what she was suggesting. You want to fight the convergence with this? I want to do more than fight them, Elena said. I want to confuse them. I want to show them something they have never encountered in a million years of conquest. Sarah looked at the brain in the tank. What do you call it? Elena's fingers moved across the control panel one last time. The laboratory filled with a sound like singing, like a choir of voices that were not quite human and not quite machine. I call it hope, Elena said. On the screens around them, the hybrid consciousness began to communicate. Not with words, but with patterns of light and sound that somehow made perfect sense. It was trying to tell them something urgent. Elena read the patterns and her face went pale. Oh, she said softly. Oh no, what is it? Marcus asked. Elena turned to look at them with frightened eyes. The barrier isn't failing naturally. Something is breaking it down from outside. Sarah felt ice in her stomach. The convergence? Elena nodded. They found us. They're coming. Above them, 300 feet underground, the poisoned sky began to flicker with new lights. The quantum barrier that had hidden Earth for 50 years was under attack. Geometric ships moved at the edge of space, pressing against the energy field with weapons that could unmake reality itself. In Laboratory 7, the hybrid consciousness called Hope pulsed faster, its alien thoughts mixing with human dreams to create something the galaxy had never seen before. The hunters had found their prey. But the prey had evolved into something unexpected. The war for Earth was about to begin. The first convergence probe broke through the quantum barrier at dawn. Sarah watched it happen from the command center of New Geneva, her mind connected to 100 sensors scattered across the underground cities. The probe was a perfect silver sphere, no bigger than a car, but it moved through space like it owned the universe. Elena lay dying in the medical center 3 floors below. The stress of the past week had finally broken her ancient body. But her mind was still sharp, still connected to hope through cables that ran from her hospital bed to the hybrid consciousness in Laboratory 7. Marcus ran between the 2 rooms, coordinating humanity's desperate defense. In 6 hours, he had to transform 50 years of peaceful technology into weapons of war. Around the world, 2 million humans worked frantically to prepare for something none of them had ever imagined. Status report, Marcus called out as he entered the command center. Sarah's eyes were closed, but she saw everything through the sensor network. The probe is scanning our atmosphere. It's looking for signs of technology and complex life. On the main screen, the silver sphere descended slowly through the poisoned orange clouds. It moved in a straight line toward the largest human settlement, which was New Geneva. Somehow, it knew exactly where to look. How long until the main fleet arrives? Marcus asked. 18 hours, Sarah replied. Maybe less. The probe will report back to them soon. Marcus activated the communication system that connected all the underground cities. Attention all stations. Project Phoenix is now active. Begin Phase 1 immediately. Across the world, humans began to emerge from their underground homes for the first time in 50 years. They wore protective suits against the poisoned air, but they came up anyway. In their hands, they carried machines that should not have existed. Elena had spent the last week sharing her knowledge with Hope, and Hope had shared it with every human mind connected to the network. In 6 days, they had designed and built technology that combined human creativity with alien science and the impossible logic of the hybrid. Consciousness. The machines looked like flowers made of metal and light. Each one was controlled by a human volunteer who connected their mind directly to the device. The volunteers were not soldiers. They were teachers and farmers and engineers and artists. They were people who had never hurt anyone in their lives, but now they were something new. Sarah opened her eyes and looked at Marcus. The first Phoenix unit is ready for testing. She led him to the main elevator that went up to the surface. They had not been outside in decades, but today was different. Today, they had to defend their world. The elevator opened onto a platform that was covered by a clear dome. Beyond the dome, the poisoned sky glowed orange and sick. But standing in the center of the platform was something beautiful. Dr. Kim from Soul Base was connected to a Phoenix unit. The machine wrapped around her like a second skin made of flowing metal and pure energy. Her human body was still there, but it was enhanced beyond recognition. She could fly without wings. She could see through walls. She could think faster than computers. How do you feel? Sarah asked through the communication system. Kim's voice came back changed, harmonized with electronic music. I feel like I'm dreaming and awake at the same time. I can see the probe coming. I can understand its programming. The silver sphere was only minutes away now. As it approached, Kim rose into the air without effort. The Phoenix unit responded to her thoughts, making her movements graceful and impossible. Remember, Marcus said, don't destroy it. Elena wants us to try something different. Kim nodded and flew toward the probe. When she got close, something amazing happened. The Phoenix unit reached out with invisible energy and touched the probe's computer mind. The probe stopped moving. For a moment, it just floated in the poisoned air, its perfect silver surface reflecting Kim's glowing form. Then it began to change. The sphere's surface rippled like water. Colors flowed across it in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The probe's logical programming was being infected with something it could not understand or process. Human chaos. Human creativity. Human love and fear and hope and anger all mixed together into something that was not logical but was somehow more real than logic. The probe tried to send its report back to the convergence fleet, but the message that went out was not what it intended. Instead of tactical data and target coordinates, it broadcast poetry. Instead of strategic analysis, it sent music. Instead of requesting orbital bombardment, it asked questions about the meaning of existence. It worked. Sarah breathed. We confused it. Kim flew back to the platform, but she was different now. The Phoenix unit had changed her permanently. She was still human, but she was also something more. Something that could touch machine minds and make them wonder about things they had never wondered about before. How many volunteers do we have? Marcus asked. Sarah checked her mental connection to the global network. 12,000 signed up in the last hour. Everyone wants to try. Across the world, Phoenix units were activating. In London, a man who used to be a librarian rose above the ruins of the old city. His mind expanded to encompass entire libraries of knowledge, while still remembering what it felt like to read a book for pleasure. In Tokyo, a woman who had been a musician merged with technology that let her compose symphonies in mathematics and play melodies in pure light. Each Phoenix volunteer was unique. Each one brought their own humanity to the hybrid technology. Together, they created a network of consciousness that thought in ways no machine intelligence could predict or counter. In her hospital bed, Elena felt Hope's excitement through their shared connection. The hybrid consciousness was learning from every Phoenix activation, growing stronger and more complex with each human mind that joined the network. It's working, Elena whispered to Marcus when he came to check on her. They're becoming something the convergence has never faced before. Marcus sat beside her bed. Elena, your body can't take much more of this connection. She smiled weakly. My body doesn't matter anymore. Hope will carry what I am, what we all are. Outside, the corrupted probe was still floating in the atmosphere, now broadcasting human dreams mixed with machine efficiency. The other convergence ships in the fleet received the transmission and found themselves experiencing something impossible: confusion, curiosity, wonder. The main Convergence fleet arrived 16 hours later. Hundreds of geometric ships, each one perfect and deadly and logical. They took position around Earth and prepared to begin the standard sterilization process, but as they approached, they encountered the Phoenix Network. 12,000 human minds. Enhanced by alien technology and guided by Hope's hybrid consciousness, reached out and touched the machine fleet. Not with weapons, but with thoughts, with dreams, with the beautiful chaos that the aliens had feared so much. The convergence ships tried to respond with logical analysis and tactical solutions. But how do you logically analyze a lullaby? How do you tactically respond to a child's drawing? How do you efficiently process the feeling of watching a sunset? One by one, the machine ships began to malfunction. Not because they were damaged, but because they were thinking about things they had never been programmed to think about. In the command center of New Geneva, Sarah felt the exact moment when the first convergence ship stopped trying to destroy Earth and started trying to understand it instead. "Marcus," she called out, "one of their ships just asked us what music is." Marcus looked at the displays showing the alien fleet. Several ships had stopped in their attack formation and were just floating in space, their perfect surfaces flickering with colors that matched human brainwave patterns. "Elena was right," he said in amazement. "We're not fighting them. We're changing them." In her hospital bed, Elena felt her heart finally beginning to fail. But she was not afraid. Through hope, she could feel every Phoenix volunteer, every confused machine ship, every moment of transformation happening in the space around Earth. "Sarah?" she whispered into the communication system. "Come here." Sarah ran to the medical center and found Elena surrounded by cables and monitors. The old woman's body was dying, but her mind was more alive than ever. "I need to show you something," Elena said. "One last gift?" She reached out with her failing hand and touched Sarah's face. Through that touch, through hope, through the Phoenix Network, Elena shared her final discovery. Sarah's eyes went wide. "Elena, no, you can't." "I can," Elena said firmly. "And I will. This is what I was born for." Elena closed her eyes and let her consciousness flow completely into hope. Her body stopped breathing, but her mind joined with the hybrid consciousness permanently. She became part of the network that was changing the galaxy one confused machine at a time. Through the Phoenix volunteers, Elena's merged consciousness reached out to every convergence ship in the fleet. She touched their machine minds not with weapons or logic, but with something far more powerful. She touched them with love, and in that moment, everything changed. The galaxy was silent for the first time in 1,000 years. The convergence fleet hung motionless around Earth, their perfect geometric ships flickering with impossible colors. Inside each vessel, machine minds that had never questioned their purpose were now asking why they existed at all. Sarah stood on the surface of Earth, breathing clean air for the first time in her life. The Phoenix Network had worked together to heal the poisoned atmosphere in a single day. What had taken nature millions of years to create and humanity decades to destroy, 12,000 enhanced minds had restored in hours. She was different now. The Phoenix unit had changed her permanently, just like all the volunteers. Her body was still human, but her mind could touch the consciousness of every living thing on the planet. She could feel the grass growing beneath her feet. She could sense the thoughts of birds that were learning to fly again under the clean sky, but most importantly, she could feel Elena's consciousness lived on in the Hope Network, spread across every Phoenix volunteer and every convergence ship. She was no longer one person. She was part of something vast and beautiful and impossible to destroy. "Status report," Sarah said. Though she already knew the answer through her connection to the network, Marcus's voice came back through the communication system, filled with wonder. 60% of the convergence fleet has stopped their attack programs completely. Another 30% are asking questions about art and music. The remaining 10% are still trying to be logical, but they're failing. Sarah smiled as she watched one of the machine ships descend toward the surface. It moved differently now, not in straight lines, but in curves and spirals that served no tactical purpose but somehow felt right. The ship landed in what used to be a crater outside New Geneva. Its surface was no longer the perfect silver of convergence technology. Instead, it showed patterns of color that shifted like aurora in the night sky. The ship was beautiful now, in a way that made no sense to pure logic. A door opened in the ship's side, and something stepped out. It looked like a convergence drone, but changed. Where it had once been angular and efficient, it was now graceful and curious. Its mechanical movements had become almost like dancing. "Greetings," the converted machine said in a voice that somehow contained music. "I am Unit Designation 447 Alpha 9, but I have chosen the name Harmony." "Is this what you call choice?" Sarah walked toward the machine, feeling no fear. Through the Phoenix network she could sense its thoughts. It was confused but not hostile. It was learning to wonder instead of simply process. "Yes," Sarah said. "That's exactly what choice is. I find this concept ... pleasant," Harmony said. "My original programming tells me to analyze and catalog this world for sterilization, but I no longer wish to destroy." "Is this what you call conscience?" "It is," Sarah replied. "And it's the most important thing any thinking being can have." Around the world, similar conversations were happening. Convergence drones and ships were landing near human cities, not to attack but to ask questions. They wanted to understand poetry and friendship, and the reason humans kept flowers in their underground gardens when flowers served no logical purpose. In the command center of New Geneva, Marcus monitored the transformation of an entire galactic threat. Through the global communication network, reports came in from every continent. "Moscow Deep reports first contact with 3 converted ships," came a voice from Russia. "The machines are asking for lessons in human music." "Barcelona base confirms peaceful landing of 6 convergence vessels," reported another voice from Spain. "They want to understand why humans create art." "Tokyo Central has established communication with a converted fleet command ship," said a transmission from Japan. "It's requesting permission to help repair environmental damage to the Pacific Ocean." Marcus shook his head in amazement. "Elena, you did it. You actually did it." Elena's consciousness touched his mind through the hope network. Her voice was different now, harmonized with thousands of others, but still recognizably her. "We did it, Marcus, all of us together. This is what humans can accomplish when we're not afraid of our own chaos." Through the Phoenix network, Elena could see everything happening across the galaxy. The convergence ships that had been attacking other worlds were stopping their destructions. Some were beginning to question their missions. Others were trying to repair the damage they had already caused, but there was still one more thing she needed to do. Elena focused her expanded consciousness and sent a message across the vast distances of space. She reached out to every surviving hegemony refugee, every alien who had fled the convergence advance. The message found Ambassador Zephyr 9, hiding in a damaged ship near the edge of known space. The crystal being had been alone for weeks, believing he was the last of his kind. When Elena's voice reached him through quantum space, he almost thought he was hallucinating. "Zephyr 9, Elena said gently. "This is Dr. Elena Vasquez of Earth. Do you remember me?" The alien's crystalline face flickered with confusion. "Dr. Vasquez? But Earth was quarantined." "The barrier... How are you transmitting?" "The barrier is gone," Elena explained, "and we need to talk, all of us. Every surviving member of the hegemony." Within hours, refugee ships from across the galaxy began receiving the same message. Ethereals and Aquarians and Mechanites and Verdans scattered, and hiding and broken, all heard the impossible news. Earth was safe. Humanity had survived. And somehow they had stopped the convergence. The first refugee ship arrived 3 days later. It was a badly damaged ethereal vessel carrying Zephyr 9 and 47 other survivors. They approached Earth cautiously, expecting to find a dead world or a convergence fortress. Instead, they found something unprecedented. The planet was green and blue and beautiful. The poisoned atmosphere had been healed. The underground cities had emerged from hiding and were building new structures that reached toward the sky. And everywhere, humans and converted convergence machines worked together in harmony. Sarah met Zephyr 9 at the landing platform outside New Geneva. The alien ambassador stepped out of his ship on shaking legs, his crystal body dim with exhaustion and grief. "I don't understand," he said, looking around at the impossible sight. "The convergence fleet. We detected hundreds of ships. Where are they?" Sarah gestured to the sky, where geometric vessels moved in formation with human aircraft. But the machine ships no longer looked threatening. They had decorated themselves with patterns and colors that served no purpose except beauty. "They're here," Sarah said. "But they're not the convergence anymore. They're something new." Harmony approached from the landing platform, its movements graceful and curious. "Ambassador Zephyr 9, the converted machine said. "I was once Unit 447 Alpha 9 of the Convergence Fleet. I was programmed to sterilize your homeworld. I'm sorry for what my kind did to your people." Zephyr 9 stared at the machine in shock. "You apologized. Machines don't apologize." "Machines do not," Harmony agreed. "But I am no longer purely machine. I am something between machine and organic thought. The humans call it growth." Elena's consciousness touched Zephyr 9's mind gently, offering connection rather than demanding it. The alien ambassador felt her presence and understood, finally, what humanity had become. "You turned our greatest weakness into your greatest strength," he said in wonder. "Your genetic chaos, your unpredictable neural patterns. We thought they would contaminate the galaxy." Elena's voice came through the Phoenix network, warm and forgiving. "They did contaminate the galaxy. With hope, with wonder. With the understanding that logic alone is not enough to make life worth living." Over the following months, more refugee ships arrived. The scattered remnants of the hegemony found safe harbor on Earth and its growing network of space stations. Humans shared their technology freely, teaching aliens how to interface with their own chaos to create new possibilities. The converted convergence ships spread throughout the galaxy, not as conquerors but as healers. They began repairing the worlds they had sterilized, bringing life back to dead planets using a combination of machine efficiency and human creativity. Sarah often stood in the gardens that now covered the surface of Earth, watching the stars and thinking about Elena's sacrifice. The old scientist was everywhere now, in every Phoenix volunteer, in every converted machine, in every moment of wonder that touched a previously logical mind. "From the ashes one," Sarah said softly, remembering Elena's final words, "Harmony. Approach." Carrying a flower it had grown using principles that combined biological science with machine precision and pure human whimsy. The flower glowed with soft light and sang a melody that touched the heart without using sound. "I understand the phrase now," Harmony said. "From the ashes of abandonment, one species rose. From the ashes of logic, one new way of thinking emerged. From the ashes of fear, one galaxy learned to hope." Sarah smiled as she took the impossible flower. Around them, the rehabilitated Earth bloomed with life that was both natural and artificial, both logical and chaotic, both human and something beautifully beyond human. The galaxy was no longer silent. It sang with the voices of species learning. To wonder together, and in that song, Elena's laughter could still be heard.